I'm going to bring something up here. I'm going to start this out. Just NBC News polling, they polled the average, had Biden up 7 percentage points over Trump, right? He's going to probably win by, this is a popular vote, 2%. Real Clear Politics, general election, 6.5 points, 538, which, one of the most accurate in 2016, still got Trump wrong. They gave Biden 8.4% advantage. But now when you're looking on November 2nd heading in, Florida, average polls had Trump losing by 2.5%. He's going to win by at least 3%. Double the margin from 2016 and more than 5% of the difference, right? I thought the polling errors were like 3%, 3.5%. Michigan, average poll had the Biden win by 8%. He's not going to win by 8%. He may win.
Right.
Texas had Trump up by 1% on average. They thought they were going to win. And yet, I think Biden won the fewest counties in Texas as Democrat in decades. Ohio was in favor of Biden by 1%. Trump is up 8%. I mean, Pennsylvania.
I mean, there's a long way of you saying these polls suck.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I'm just going through these numbers, which, they have Wisconsin.
I don't know where they get their,
10%.
first of all, the polling companies are toast. If there was a polling company that was publicly traded, I'd short it.
Do you know how much it costs for these polls to be? I mean, there's tons of them, but why are they so wrong? Why should we believe them? What's wrong with the system? Because a lot of people even base their decisions on these polls and say, wow, why go even vote for Trump or why, whatever it is. But it has influence.
Well, but it's also the money in advertising that's spent to try to pop up some polling areas that aren't strong. That's a big issue. You have, your campaign schedule that goes along with that. There's a lot of things that go with it. But I've got to tell you something. The polls are only as good as the information that you get out of it. And it's kind of like a situation right now that I look at similarly with analysts and economists. I mean, can you tell me why we should be following any analyst on any stock right now or any kind of economist on? They're so off. I mean, they're so off. It's either the data that's being input is really poor, the analysts just are terrible at what they do, or we're in a bit of a different circumstance, particularly with companies, where it's just impossible to really gather that kind of information up. And you have to wonder when you look at like other polls like confidence, right? You look at the various University of Michigan confidence rating. Are these even accurate? And I think it's a flaw in just the data collection process, as well as the analysis. And maybe it's a different type of person that's going to be answering the questions. Maybe there's a lack of truthfulness in some of this for some reason. There was that closet Trump voter phenomena that we heard about, but I don't know. There's no reason. It's a good guide, but it's not something to hang your hat on. Just like we saw the estimates. What was it? 83% of companies beat estimates last quarter. 83%. Frank, what's the usual? 65%. So I think we have to take all this with a grain of salt. I think part of right now with some of this is, of course, the strangeness of 2020. But the polls really been off for the last two elections, and it may be a Trump phenomena that's involved because they were kind of okay before that. We can put some reliability in it, but I don't know what's the point anyway of the polls. Let me ask you this. Let me throw this back at you. Yeah. Aside from where you're going to advertise and you're going to campaign and for the politicians, what's the point of the polls otherwise?
I don't know. I understand internal polls where you could say, hey, listen, we're losing in these counties, but it's internal. But to make these public, right? It's only to influence people's decisions, I would think, right?
I would think so. Maybe it's good for the betting sites that now you can bet on anything. We could bet on the over how long this interview is going to be. I'm sure there's something on some site somewhere where it's going to be, or, it's going to be, kind of those things that are now bettable, where there's something on it. Obviously, those companies are probably paying for the information to create the odds to then put it out so they can, do the work to make sure they're not going to get scalped on any of this. But I don't know what the purpose of the polls are, unless it's just a talking point for the news. I don't know. And for the campaigns themselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I'm looking at what's going on with Vegas, this is the first time where they really had this wrong. I mean, right now they have, I think, Biden over 70% winning. They had him at, I think, 72 at 10 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Then they had him pretty much in the 60s. Then at midday, they had him down to 28%. I'm talking about
it's unbelievable.
11 o'clock last night. And now he's at 70%. So you never see, these are people betting with money, right? That's why you trust, because they're putting millions, sometimes millions of dollars. To see that flip back and forth, it's pretty surprising, I guess, right? I mean, even they didn't know.
There is so much money sloshing through the system right now due to just all sorts of reasons, right? Whether it's the stimulus program, where it's low interest rates, whatever you want to call it. I just think people that have money are just kind of like saying, well, you know what, if I run out, I'll get more. There's going to be another stimulus program, or I'll figure a way to make money. It's a very, great time. And I'm not sure that's a really a good commentary on the long-term opportunity for a growth in the economy. If people are just being rather, I don't know, just, negligent with their spending habits. And I'm not sure that the people that are betting have all the data, or they just want something to do. I don't know about you. I don't really bet on sports, but sometimes I do. And the reason I do it is so I'm more engaged. I have more of a desire to watch it. And sometimes, like, through the football season in years past, I'm like, whatever the game. But if I bet on it, even $10, to be honest with you, I feel like I got to watch the game. It's more exciting to me to be involved in it for money. And our country over the last number of years has really been focusing on our purses and our pocketbooks and our wallets more than anything else. And I think that's a big sign of what's going on, with those kinds of betting sites. I'm not sure if those are anything. It is a phenomenon. These have come into play, like even weekend market betting sites where you can bet on the stock markets over the weekend, right? You've seen these. So, but there's not a big pool of people doing this. And I don't know. I don't think this is the gambling part of all this. We know what happens. Casinos are not built on the winners, right? They're built on the losers, and those casinos are pretty big. And I think that it's house favored, and it's built that way, and it's a great business. So it excites people. It gets them. Everybody wants to win. Listen, if people walk into a casino, Frank, you've been into a casino, right, Frank?
Of course.
And you walk in the floor, and you see those people putting the quarters in that machine that goes, like, you know what I'm saying? It's and they're like, they think they're going to win. Or the people that think they're going to push the button and it's going to go right through that hole for that wad of $100 bills, they never win. They never win. But the excitement of just sticking those quarters in is just, they can't stop.
No. And believe it or not, talking about the gambling aspect, there's 25 states now. I think there was 3 that approved gambling. I'm not too sure which one they are. I mean, I think it was Louisiana and a 2 others. But now that's 25 states that allow some form of legalized gambling, which, again, that marijuana, how all these states with COVID and everything and people moving out of the major areas is going to generate revenue. That's another story. But I want to go one more thing to election before we go into what this means for everyone's portfolio, because I'm going to bring this up really quick so you could see it as well, because people are probably going to ask, all right, what's going to happen in the coming days? So, I mean, we know right now what switched here was Wisconsin, and right now it's 239 to 213, right, for Trump. Right. And I'm doing for those of you just on iTunes watching this, we're also taping this on video, but I'm going to break it down for everybody. But if you look at Trump, this is why I said Nevada's the most important, because if he wins, or let's go to Georgia, assume that he's going to win Georgia and North Carolina.
But look at you. You like the CNN guys.
Oh, that guy's great. What's the guy, King?
Is he great? I don't think he's slept in weeks. He hasn't slept in weeks.
I can tell you, they tried to do like the Fox thing back and forth, man. It didn't even work. Like they were light years behind that guy. That guy knows every county. So look, if we go here and we assume that this is going to be Wisconsin and Michigan, right, are going to be blue. So now it's important, because if Trump loses Nevada but happens to win Pennsylvania, he's up, but they're going to count a lot of Democrats, and a lot of people think it's going to favor them, but he's up a lot right now. So if you click this, he's at 264. This is Nevada here. So he needs Nevada to win. If he doesn't have Nevada, that goes to Biden. He's done. So Nevada right now is the most important part, and nobody's really talking about it, which is interesting. Now,
what about Alaska? You missed Alaska down.
Yeah, Alaska is kind of 3, but not really
3. Yeah,
so and right now, as of Alaska, I think it's Trump is up. It's favoring him, but that's really not going to make a big deal. But let me ask you this, Andrew: Biden win. That's what it looks like based on the odds. The Vegas,
right?
And we have the Senate is going to be controlled. It's going to be maintained by Republicans, which is pretty much a good scenario because I think for the stock market, anyway, what Republicans have all the branches, again, total control. I think it gets pretty crazy with some of these extreme measures. Are you worried about the market and what we're going to see with stocks? Because this could actually take months if they're going to recount some of these things. They're going to go to Supreme Court. What's going to happen to stocks? And does it matter because the Senate was very, very important where I think people think the stimulus is going to get passed and we're going to be okay?
I mean, I think that generally there was, this is first of all, let's go back to 2016. The pattern that we're seeing right now, which was a down move the 2 weeks prior to the 2016 election, coming down to the 50-day moving average for the S&P 500. This time, down the 200-day moving average for the S&P 500, popped up 2 or 3 days in advance of the election. On election day, it popped. If it's almost identical. Now, the difference is the S&P 500 didn't get down to the 200-day moving average, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average did. And we're seeing just an outsized rally and everything. As a matter of fact, overnight, when we had these numbers, it did look like the Dow Jones was going to be in problematic zone due to the potential for, listen, hey, they're going to attack healthcare and it may be rough on some of the banks and all that. And there's all sorts of concerns. I mean, we don't even know if this talk about him putting in Elizabeth Warren as Treasury Secretary, what that would do, right? We don't know who the makeup of the cabinet. We don't know the makeup of the Federal Reserve, who's going to be involved in that. I mean, who knows if he puts like Warren in charge of the Federal Reserve? Ouch. So the thing is that it's a very difficult time. And let me just say one other thing. Back in year 2000, when we had the election that was contested due to the hanging chads, were you living down here back then in 2000?
In 2000? No, I was in Florida.
Right. So I was a Florida resident. We had this hanging chads. We all hung our heads. We're like, oh, it's Florida again. It's screwing everything up, you know? But into the end of the year, the markets lost about 7%. 7%. So we have a situation that you have the possibility that this goes on and it gets contested and it goes back and forth and possibly then you have to ask, okay, so what if it does go back and forth? What if right now we just exchange Biden for Trump or Trump for Biden? Is there any change to the underlying? I don't see it. I mean, there are different initiatives. We know that Biden is probably going to try to come up with an infrastructure plan. He's probably going to try to come up with a tax plan, but the probability is it's going to be blocked by the Senate unless maybe some of the people in the Senate say, well, we don't have to follow the president anymore, or we're, because if we don't, he's going to call us out on that. I don't think Biden's going to be doing that, as the tweet storms that Trump did. So maybe they'll be a little bit more relaxed and able to make good policy. But I don't see much of a difference here between the two. I think it's really all about when are we going to have the next stimulus? What's the size and scope of the stimulus? And what's going to happen in terms of the pandemic? Now, the question that a lot of people ask is, if Biden comes in, is he going to shut down the economy? Mm-hmm. Because we have a significant rise in the coronavirus case count. And however we want to discuss that, we can. But just from the statistics that we know, this is what's being reported, right? There's a rise, I think, over 50,000 hospitalizations now and all this other stuff. Now, whether we can say it's right, it's wrong, whether the statistics are wrong, this is what the numbers are for the moment. So is he going to shut down the economy? Is he going to shut down and put stay-at-home orders or put partials or curfews? I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he has the ability to do that. I think it's the individual states. Now, they may be a recommendation. There may be an attempt to do a national mask mandate. I don't know how that's going to hurt the economy. It doesn't seem likely that could hurt the economy. It just may have a lot of people all pissed off they have to wear a mask. But I don't necessarily think that there's a significant difference because either one, whether it's President Trump that gets in or Biden, we're going to get the stimulus. That is what the markets are focusing in on. They want finality in this election. I think there's a relief rally of a giant exhale of, it's over, thank God, or close to over. We know that it's beyond the date. But the VIX dropped from like 35 or something like that down to like 28 and a half. We got the Dow Jones up 700 points. We got the large cap growth up 5%. We got the small caps actually making some headway to the upside when they were down all day. Everything seems to be going okay. Even some of the names that were problem. I mean, some of the gun stocks and stores that sell are a little bit down. Some of the retailers that are probably most affected by stimulus are a little bit lower because if there was going to be a blue wave, they think that there's going to be a big amount of stimulus and there's going to be a bit more restrained. I think the markets, I'm hoping that the markets can kind of get a little bit beyond this. We know eventually there's going to be a president. Eventually there'll be a presidential pick, and then we'll just have business as usual without the tweets.
One is if Trump loses and decides not to tweet anymore, what is everyone?
Well, he's not going to decide not to.
But say if he does, what's going to happen to CNBC and MSNBC? They're not going to do it themselves. What about Seth Meyers and all these people? Everything is Trump. Every book that's on the New York Times bestseller list, whether they like him or not, is Trump. It's kind of going to be weird if Biden wins, not having him. But I know it'll be tweet storms, and he's not going to go down without a fight, even if they declare him the loser. I think we all know he's just going to go a little crazy. But let's talk. Well,
the problem for Trump is there's a totally different problem for Trump. Aside from the fact that he's going to get a major ding to his self-image, right, and to his self-worth, and feeling that he lost. He'll make it. Listen, we know his personality. He's going to make it look like there was some kind of a scam, there's some kind of scandal involved in this, and then he'll move on. The question is going to be, though, what's his future going to hold if some of these lawsuits from New York and all that start to pop up, and he's an ordinary citizen without pardonabilities. So we'll see who he pardons and what his thinking is on the way out, if that's the case. Yeah. I think that he was very good for the markets in that he was a major cheerleader constantly. Joe Biden's a little bit more of a Debbie Downer. I think that's unquestionable. A lot slower pace. I don't see Biden playing golf as much. Just saying. I think Biden will replace the amount of time that Donald Trump played golf with naps. Probably.
I think so. He's going to be over 80, right? I mean, by the time the 4 years is up, it's pretty scary because I know why they didn't want to do too many events. I mean, it wasn't just you're picking on him with some of the gaffes. I mean, it was like every day he was just, and you were looking at it going, again, as someone who is an undecided voter, as someone who cares about, you're going to be the leader of the free world, you want to make sure that you can have that job, and I think he can, but it was just the more he was out there, it was kind of crazy. Where Trump, I don't think
this vote. I don't think this vote was anything about, oh my God, I love Biden and what he's doing. No. I don't think that's the case. That was not the vote. Yeah. The vote was, I don't want Trump. That was the vote, or I want Trump. Either one, right? It was, hey, I want to vote for Trump, or I don't want to vote for Trump. That's it. That was the whole vote.